David, on this 200 plus missing cars saga. Now, the previous administration, they've thrown a challenge to the MPP.
That's right.
Okay, let me read part of a statement that was issued and signed by former Deputy Chief of Staff under the John Dramani Mahama administration. He says, as part of the transition process, both the Assets and Logistics Committee on the MPP side were giving a detailed list of all vehicles in the pool at the presidency. More importantly, a total of 641 vehicles were listed and properly accounted for. This was duly captured in handing over notes. And then he provides the evidence to back this. It then goes ahead to give us a detailed breakdown of every vehicle. In fact, there is an appendix where you see the chassis number and everything, very detailed. Now, this is a challenge. It says, if the MPP government was sincere about these claims, it would have published a full list of all allegedly missing vehicles and provide specific information on each of them. He's put you on the defensive. He's provided the evidence. You came up with information without it. Where's the evidence to back that the claim you made that 200 plus missing cars are missing from the presidency?
Thank you very much, Evans. This is very interesting. Very interesting. And the reasons are simple. We know previous governments left a few vehicles at the pool. Government will come, government will go. Parties will win election and get into governance. However, state remains state. We are told on authority that day one we MPP moved into the Flagstaff House to commence business as a government. We took delivery of some vehicles, numbering a little over 170.
From?
In the pool, those that we saw.
So those that you met?
Those that we met.
Okay.
There is a vast difference, 173.
Okay.
There is a vast difference between what the NDC government standing outside will tell you we handed over and what practically you go to the presidential pool to find there.
Okay, so you're talking about cars that are physically parked.
I am speaking to facts relating to cars that we as a government inherited physically from the Flagstaff House.
The part of the presidency.
173 cars. Okay. And these are serviceable cars which had a few minor mechanical problems. Serviceable in the sense that you just needed to change the battery and the car could run. Okay. You just needed to connect a few plugs and the car would run. Those numbered up to 173. As we speak now, it is out of these 173 serviceable vehicles that in the last 1 month or so, presidential staffers had put them in good use and are using them officially. As we speak, it took the presidential staffers a little over 3 weeks before some of these cars could become roadworthy to be used for official duties. Apart from the 173, we also had 45 cars parked at the presidency at a lodge popularly known as Kosovo, virtually abandoned at the presidency. 45 of them completely shattered and broken down. Okay. That brings to around 218 thereabouts. The interesting thing is that one man, Sule, who is in charge of transport at the presidency,
now or previously?
Now, I mean then.
Okay.
The NDC appointed Mr. Sule, who was in charge of vehicles at the presidency. He told us he did not have any idea the total number of vehicles at the presidency. He was in charge of logistics there. So we appointed one Captain Tando to take over. And he led the government to do the inventory. Then we physically identified the 173 serviceable vehicles and the 45 completely broken down vehicles, numbering a little over 218 thereabouts. This is a document. The total 218 vehicles, out of which 173 are serviceable and we put them to use, and 45 are totally broken down. These are the numbers. We have them. And don't forget, vehicles that are within the presidential pool used for official presidential duties do not normally come out with the regular DVLA number plates. Most of them have security numbers. What is the point in officially coming out to put these numbers out? And as I speak now, with the greatest of respect, Honorable George Lowe, there are members of your party who are conveniently and comfortable cruising in some of these state vehicles. And my understanding is that we do not intend, and the purpose of retrieving these state vehicles It's not to put any individual's name on the table to humiliate him or otherwise. So what is the point in coming to sit on Newsfile to say vehicle number JM7653 2013 Toyota Land Cruiser V8 is being driven by Kwesi Mensah of NDC?
So this document you hold, is that the document?
The total number of
your
218
This is your
vehicles
compilation.
at the presidential pool. These are their numbers. They are here.
Okay.
We've
So
done the event.
Are they the ones missing?
No, the ones
The ones they met, the ones they
we
met,
met.
the ones you verified are in existence, and it
Absolutely.
includes the ones, the 40-something you say.
Absolutely.
are out of
45
service.
broken down and 173
Okay.
serviceable, some of which we have
So the
serviced
question,
and are using.
how do you know that 200 plus are missing? Because this is what you could verify. So
Absolutely.
how do you know that there are 200 that you can account for?
That leads me to the gravamen of the issue. This is a document from the Office of the President, a memo from the logistics officer, given to the then Chief of Staff, signed on the 3rd of January 2017. This document was prepared by the logistics officer at the presidency, handed over to Julius Debra,
Okay.
who then handed it over to Madam Freeman Opari, the new Chief of Staff. The document is signed 3rd of January. In this document, we are told, let me read the heading. Attached here read are copies of handing stroke taking over certificates
I don't see a
on
signature.
various types. It's signed.
Okay, so this is a signature.
Yes, it's signed.
I'm assuming this is a signature.
It's signed.
Okay.
This
No,
is
I'm just assuming because it's scribbled.
Evans, I'm speaking to you on authority.
No, I'm
This
just
is
saying,
a
on
document
the
from
face
the
of it,
presidency.
Do you
I
want
see
to
a
show
scribble.
it? Do you want to show it to the
Sure.
Let's show it to the camera. Let's see.
So
Let's
this
let
is
the
it.
camera pick it up. Okay, so that's it. So you see
Absolutely.
this. You see it against the form from to date. There's
Absolutely.
the scribble on the other end.
So 3rd of January
Which
2017,
we are
this
told is
document
the
was
signature.
handed over to us
Yeah.
as an inventory of all the vehicles
Yeah.
at the presidency
Okay.
and the pool. Now, this is the interesting revelation here. We are told in this document that the total number of cars
By
at the
the way,
presidential pool
whose signature
are
is that?
400 and...
By the way,
it's important. It's not a question that's
whose
important.
The
signature
document is
that?
from Director of Logistics to the Chief of Staff.
But there's
so
no
this
name.
is signed.
There's no name. There's no name.
Whose document is? Whose signature is that? How can we prove that signature
It's his.
is his?
I mean, it's important
Or it's
because you
coming
see,
from somebody
when
such memos you
Yeah.
have to
Maybe-
have the
maybe
person's
if-
name.
if-
Yeah,
and then signature, and
Exactly.
there must
This
be
is why I
and there
asked.
must be a provision
That
that's a
is why I
signature.
ask.
You sign on top of the line, and then
Evans.
there's a name.
Exactly.
Evans.
So,
And
so
there's
for
even a
example,
date.
so if
There's a
there's
date
any
for
controversy,
signature.
if there's any controversy, we know who to hold, right? Because we claim he signed it, so we can say him. But there's no name. There's just a title.
Evans, what I'm telling you is that when we took over, this is a document prepared by the logistics officer at the presidency.
Name.
Handed over. I mentioned Sule to you.
What's the full name?
Mr. Sule Abubakar.
Okay. So that's what you telling us.
Yes,
On the
that's
face
what
of the
I'm telling
document, it
And
doesn't
his
say Sule.
position at the presidency was
He's
what?
the head of logistics.
Okay.
Head of
And the
logistics.
Suleiman, he told us he had no knowledge. And then he finally prepared this document. You and I know on authority the...
Okay, can I just ask one
let
question?
No. Let him go
You see,
through
I
the
wanted
picture.
him to make his case
Let him finish.
so that we follow.
Absolutely.
So we can answer.
Let
I
me
mean,
know.
I'm just bringing it up so that people, because again, the facts on the face of it, then listeners can choose to place value on the document. But on the face of it, this is what we have, and you saw it on
On the
television.
face of the pink sheet.
On the face of the picture.
Like I was saying.
Yeah.
So in this document, we are told these are the breakdown.
Okay.
Toyota Land Cruiser V8, these are the numbers. And we are told in this document that the total number of cars we have is supposed to be 426.
Okay.
That is what is contained in this document, which was handed over to us at the presidency. 426
Can you do me a favor?
total number of
Because
cars.
that is written on the front page. If you can find it in the document where
We
it
have the
says
breakdowns, the type of car, Toyota Land Cruiser V8, and these are the corresponding vehicle numbers. The other category of vehicles are all stated
Okay.
here. Some are tractors, and then
so what it is
others
is
are
that
utility vehicles.
If you add all the vehicles that you
Absolutely.
listed, it comes to
426.
Okay.
But when we went to the presidency
You saw
and visited the
200
pool, we saw 218.
Okay.
And we divided them into two categories. The serviceable ones, 173, and the completely broken down vehicles, 45. So this is what we are saying. If we took this document from the handing over team at the presidency, and we are told there are 426 vehicles, and we have only identified 218, then we have a bigger responsibility to go out there to look for the existing 206 vehicles, which must have been in the custody of persons who legally do not have to have custody of those vehicles. Secondly, Listen to the concluding opening remark in this document. It says all the 4x4 vehicles allocated to former ministers of state as well as former deputy ministers have been handed over to the chief directors of the respective ministries. What this means is that the 426 vehicles we are talking about here do not include that of the ministries. This is exclusively reserved to the presidency. So my point and my understanding is that it will interest you again to realize some of the ministries would also have to send out task force to start looking for missing vehicles uniquely assigned
to that ministry.
To that ministry. So we have a bigger task and a bigger responsibility. But the question here is, did you listen to the Administrator General who spoke? The last time he spoke, he said there are 678 cars.
True.
And after he spoke, he said, well, I have not been there to see the 678 cars.
True.
But I know there are 678 of them. The NDC officially has come out with another figure, a little over 400.
Yeah.
So the NDC, as a party out of power who once managed these cars, are giving different figure.
Yeah.
The Administrator General, who under the watch of NDC took total control and managed this fleet of vehicles, is also giving a 678 figure, different. What practically is at the presidential pool, which we have seen, also number up to 218, different. Yeah. So really, you don't think the presidency has a bigger responsibility to go out there and set up a task force to go around look for these cars?
Evans, point of correction. Did you say the NDC handed over for a little over 400?
That's not what I've said. What I'm saying is, I'm quoting copiously from this document.
No. I'm saying that you just made a statement. Because what the Deputy Chief of Staff provided was 641.
Okay, so he's quoting from this document.
Oh, so NDC is officially telling us the cars are 641.
The document that you said is 641.
So Mr. Lowe, the point is...
No,
there are a few questions that I want to ask, and it follows from what we know. So far, from this document, we have at least 3 different versions of the story, right? And let's break it down for purposes of our listeners. The first version is what Johnny Osei Kofi, the former Deputy Chief of Staff, put out. That posts the number at 641 vehicles.
641.
The second, and it's not a document, it's an assertion made by the Administrator General in an interview he granted me, in which he says, and this is also very interesting, he says he was giving a document signed by either the Chief of Staff, the former Chief of Staff, Julius Debra, or the Chief Director of the Presidency. And in this document, he told me, there were a total of 678 vehicles on that list. But it's important to note, he said, that he did not independently verify that these 678 vehicles are indeed there, can be seen, and verify that they are there, right? But he says the document that he was giving, that was signed by either the former Chief of Staff or the Chief Director of the Presidency, had in it 678. Now, then there's this document, which we are told, and again, I'm saying we are told because as of now, there's logistics officer there, one Sule. I'm just quoting from what he said. We're also up for debate because somebody might come and say this is not authentic. But I'm going to go with what he's presented. At least that's what he's told us. This document says there are 426, right? And this same document is purported to come from the previous administration, from the Flagstaff House.
That's right.
So the question is, if the Administrator General says he got a document from the Chief of Staff, that put the figure at 678. How come, if that's true, then there are 2 documents from the previous administration quoting 2 different figures? Anybody follow? 2 documents. Administrator General says one document came from the Chief of Staff signed by him, correct?
Yes.
That had 678. You say there's another document from the previous administration from the Director of Transport quoting 426. It has to be reconciled. I mean, how that discrepancy is, I don't know. But do you know how you can reconcile that?
Evans, you see, there is a difficulty in reducing the governance process to the retrieval of cars. It is an unpleasant discussion.
Yeah, but it's an important one.
It's an important one. I do not enjoy the blame game approach to this particular situation. You move to the presidency. I know on authority, out of these 173 serviceable vehicles, when you assign a vehicle to a presidential staffer, you keep the vehicle number, you keep the name, you track it. If you lose power, Is it not very simple for you to pick a call and say, David Asante, you were at the presidency, a vehicle so and so was handed over to you 3 years ago, submit it.
Yeah.
I think it is a bigger responsibility that rested on the shoulders of the erstwhile administration to have aided in bringing together all these cars, hand them over peacefully before you exited. You don't hand over a document that has the car registration numbers and tell me you go find them out. So again, I am happy the chief of staff has not left the matter to operate on autopilot, where individuals will take the law into their own hands and you see a vehicle that you suspect to be a state vehicle, you pounce on it. That is not the kind of democracy we want to
but because you're in government now, you can help us resolve the conflicts.
Absolutely.
Too many of them.
And that is why the chief of staff has officially set up a task force to make the process very official and give it a legal backing that it is coming from the chief of staff office. We have the revenue authority rep on it, we have the CID rep on it, we have the police on it, we have the BNI, and from the presidency. It is an officially constituted body mandated to go out and get these vehicles back to the presidential pool. Why did we even have to get there in the first place?
Okay,
why do you go home with a vehicle?
Are we going to be briefed, the public, I mean, when this process is done? How many vehicles they found? What's the reconciliation between the Johnny Osei, because again, even the Johnny Osei, the Deputy Chief of Staff number is different from the supposed document from the former transport director. And I think it should be in sync, because if the former Chief of Staff, Deputy Chief of Staff, sending a document out quoting 641 vehicles, how come that figure is different from his previous transport director, who's now quoting 426? Again, that's another
Evans, for
discrepancy.
Me, the bigger problem is if the former Chief of Staff in his handing over document presented 641 vehicles. That even makes the matter more serious. Yeah. Because when we got there, we didn't see 641 vehicles.
He's also
what
said
we saw
in an
is 173 and then 45, totaling 218.
He's also said
this is what we saw
in an interview that the 641 vehicles will not all physically be parked at the presidency.
Okay.
And that there are departments, agencies under the presidency. So, for example, the AIDS Commission will be under the presidency.
That's right.
So if they assign a vehicle to the director of the AIDS Commission, for example, it will be assigned under the presidency. It won't be parked there, but it will be factored in as part of the presidential pool.
Evans,
and so you will not find them there.
That's document. I would gleefully hand over a copy of this document to you. Then I'm sure you would appreciate my position better. Exactly what you are saying. There is a comprehensive breakdown of the various departments at the presidency and the registration of the cars that are currently sitting at those departments. This is contained in this report. And I'm saying when you add up all these breakdown, you arrive at the figure of 426. So what you are saying feeds into what this document says.
Okay.
That's there is a clinic or a hospital facility, there is a transport, there is a food joint, and there is all that. And all these various departments of the presidency have these vehicles assigned to them. Okay. And the total number adds up to 426. Okay. So when we received this document from the logistics officer, from the chief of staff, we went in there with our Captain Tando and did a proper inventory and took stock. And contrary to the number of vehicles stated here, with their corresponding registration numbers, we found differently 218 cars presently.
Thank you.
So as we speak now, we are acting and working purely on the instruction contained in the document of inventory given to us. So they say we handed over 426, and we have seen 218.
What about, because Adrian also says that he handed over that document with a list of the vehicles to your representatives at the transition. Okay, so what about that?
The transition document is different from the document that talks exclusively about the cars at the presidency.
It says in the transition document was also a document that had a compilation, an inventory.
That's right. A subcommittee, I thought, I think was chaired by Honorable Ayikwe Otu.
Yeah. That's right, chaired by Honorable Ayikwe Otu. So but what we are talking about here is
but
exclusively...
That's a question. I want you to answer that question, because he says, and this is Advocate General, he's supposed to be an independent person in all this. He says, I gave to the transition committee, your side, a document signed by either the chief of staff previously or the chief director that had an inventory of all the cars. So you should have that document.
Of course, that document is what feeds into this thing. This is an excerpt extracted from the main transition document. This is the Office of the President memo purely on logistics at the presidency. So this is except from the principal document, and this is dealing purely with vehicles.
Yeah, but not the other document. It says there's a document purely devoted to the talking about the inventory of cars.
Absolutely.
That was given
This is
in the transition. But that is different because it says that it's 678 vehicles.
And that's what I'm talking about. The problem and the difficulty is that you have said the vehicles are 678 contained
in the transition
document. But we go there and we find 218.
Okay.
So we have the duty to write officially to Ghanaians to tell them, help us find out these cars as part of the processes of taking care of the state kitty. Okay. And that's exactly what we are doing.
Let me bring in Judge Low on this because there are a lot of questions still unanswered. And so what's your take on this? Now we have the document from the current government where they got the information about the 200 missing cars. What's your take on this?
Evans, you see, this matter is a very interesting matter. But you see, when you choose to do things in a particular way, and it's not based on facts and on truth, you find yourself in the situation my brother finds himself in this moment, where you cannot put 1 + 1 to make 2, but your 1 + 1 is beginning to look like 4 and sometimes 5. Because clearly the explanation is given. Everybody sitting at home wearing his thinking cap will realize that it doesn't fit. It doesn't wash. Let me start. That's why yesterday I was so excited. I was on a program with one of his colleagues. And you know what he said? He said, oh, Akufo-Addo is using his own car because he wants to show Ghanaians that he wants to be modest. And then in another story, they are saying that, oh, it's because he cannot find a car to sit in from the presidency. I mean, these cock and bull stories will not take us anywhere. We have had a transition based on law. And as you rightly put it, we have an administrator general who has given transition documents to the transition team. So why are they not working with that document? 2, this brother of mine says that we walked into the presidency and we found 173 cars sitting there. And then we had another 40-something in a very bad shape sitting somewhere. And those are the only vehicles we can find. So he's saying to us that when you walk to Ghana AIDS Commission, there will be no vehicle found. That if you walk to other departments under the presidency, there will be no vehicle. And we have also been told that ministers and deputy ministers had handed over their vehicle to their chief directors. Look, under the presidency, you know we have the VVIP unit. And then we also have the operations unit. And they operate on different tangents, and yet all the vehicles would come under the office of the president. So this joke where they want to use vehicles as a propaganda tool to purchase new ones and do whatever they want to do, we are aware. Look, Evans, I am saying to you that if indeed 200 state vehicles were missing, and you have a list of even the 400 and something that he's talking about. If I find it so difficult by sitting around the table and say, okay, they've given us this chassis number, how can't you find the vehicle? If you go, look, I can assure you that if you go into the presidency, there is no vehicle that has been assigned to somebody that does not have records. And that you know, okay, so have you called the chief director to say that, okay, a minister for youth and sports, has he indeed given his vehicle to you or not? And then you start adding on to the numbers. But a situation where you yourself, your mind is, you've set up a plan to deceive Ghanaians into believing that these things have been coming. Why haven't they gone from one minister? Show me one minister that they've gone and they said that this minister, you can't account for your vehicle. So where is it? I mean, let's get serious in this country. Let's get serious in this country. All these numbers that he's throwing about, it doesn't wash. Because, I mean, Johnny Osei has brought 641 vehicles. Yeah. He's giving you chassis numbers and all the other details that you need. Have they audited that? So why haven't they been able to put out that exactly these 200 with these chassis numbers and things like that we can't find? So public, when you see, aid the police to retrieve those vehicles. It's because all that they are doing is cooked up. I'm so convinced about that. That state vehicles are not popcorn where you pop in your mouth, you eat, and it goes away. They are real fiscal vehicles that you can go there and find. So you see, all these issues they are talking about. I mean, you are looking for state vehicles, and then you go to Kofi Adams' residence. I mean, you are looking for state vehicles, the places you go to are picking up people's brothers on the streets. It doesn't wash.
Are you saying, though, that there's no member of the previous administration who is keeping a car
illegally.
You
see, let me say to you that.
Is that what you're saying on the phone?
Let me say to you. You see, when you listen to the Deputy Chief of Staff in the interview, he says, look, we had a meeting. I remember that the president had a cabinet, the last meeting with all the ministers that were public.
And the directive was given,
and he gave specific directives that everybody return your cars. And I know many people who returned their cars and took taxis home.
But can you vouch that people did not return?
I am saying that, you see, Evans, let's go back into history. Why is it that it's only NPP who comes to power and cars are missing?
Oh, but that's not fair.
It is. Listen. When we came to power,
same thing happened.
Listen, when we came to power, we couldn't identify some vehicles. Did we go chasing people with?
People were chased.
No.
In 2009.
No. Give me the.
The MPP flag bearer then
people were chased. The MPP flag bearer.
Please. Nobody was. Listen.
Anyone there was an apology rendered to him.
Listen. No car was picked off the streets. They went to him to demand vehicles.
They took it.
Listen, they went to him to demand vehicles, and then when they found out that some of the vehicles were, they returned it.
The same things happening now.
No, I am saying, you remember Professor Mills when he was in Canada, and they went and took out cars from his house, and things like that.
Yeah. So the statement you made about is only MPP, it's not.
They are the ones who go
it's not
where you have people like Abronye who, I don't know what role he has in government.
Evans.
Leading
hold on.
Leading people to people's private homes to do this kind of lawless act, and we think that we should be clapping for. I'm saying that, look, I would have thought that by now we have refined ways of doing things, and that we have learned lessons from the past, and that if you cannot find a state vehicle, there is a nice way of going about it. Call the former chief of staff. You've given us this number. We cannot find this vehicle. Who had it? It is not for anything that he is the one who is able to give you, because he has responsibility for the operations of the office of the president. Call him into a meeting and say, look, you know what? We found only 173 cars. Can you assist us to find the others? Quietly. If at a point it comes out that people have taken state property, the best thing to do is that, okay, all of you, since you cannot bring them, we are lining you up, we are prosecuting you for stealing state property. For me, in a civilized democracy, that is the way to go. But you see, there are people who I cannot quote from their side, because I had actually told them that, I will not quote you. I had promised them that I will not quote you. But these operations and strategies that you are deploying, we know what you are doing. So don't deceive yourself. Don't think that we don't know where you are.
Which is what?
Of course, it is to give the dog a bag, name a hang for future political.
No, but if you
Please,
give, but if
I am
you give
saying
them,
that I am saying that if you lie that NDC has stolen 200 vehicles, it's for political advantage.
No, but Mr. Lowe, even if you go by Johnny Osei Kofi's own letter, the publication, 641, they have verified only 200 and what? 18. That leaves almost 400 vehicles still on the counter.
He is talking about vehicles that they went and saw packed.
Yes.
And I'm saying that the office of the president doesn't cease to operate when there's a change of government. And that there are many other places, many other institutions under the office of president that are operating on daily basis.
And are you telling me we are not aware of these various departments?
I'm saying that, are you saying that all, apart from the vehicles you found, all the other vehicles that is everything.
Honorable, I think you didn't take time to listen to my submission.
Let him finish. You get a second bite of the cherry.
Unless, of course, you were not listening to yourself. You said that you are working with something that a logistic officer has given you that covered the whole of the presidency, right? And that you only saw 173 packed. That was service ago, and then 40 something that was
out of service.
Out of service. In effect, he's saying that no government vehicle was up and running on the 7th of January, and yet all the state protocol vehicles that worked on that day were not.
In other words, if it were not parked.
Yeah, they are saying that if you're not parked there, it means that somebody has stolen it. That is the logic he's espousing, and I say that logic is flawed.
Let me bring it. Let me bring it, Jumbo. Then I'll come back to you. Just make notes for me, Prof.
Well, there are so many imponderable issues to this claim, and in my view, they're contradictory and conflictory.
There's so many of them.
Yeah, imponderables, and the contradictory and conflicting claims regarding the number of cars that we have and those that are not there and those that are there. It's a monumental shame to us as a nation in terms of our efforts to keep record and to take stock about assets that belongs to the state. I am aware that the Administrator General was given a list of vehicles and, of course, other assets that were that belong to the state.
And he said he handed over to the transition.
Yes, and I don't like the way and manner he's going about, talking about this. Yeah. As an Administrator General who is also supposed to be a stock taker, under the Presidential Transition Act, he tells us that he never went there physically to check the vehicles. What prevented him? If you couldn't do that...
You didn't have the resources.
Well, if you didn't have the resource, I don't think it's right for you to be going about saying that even though I was supposed to be the stock taker, I was given some list I didn't verify. I mean, it's not good enough. You should have gone there to go verify yourself. If you didn't do that, you should... It's quite a shame. And you shouldn't go about talking about it that way I didn't go and verify. I mean, what's the whole essence of stock taking? If somebody says I have X amount of vehicles and he gives the number to you, he gives you a list, it is incumbent on you to go check and be sure, so that you'll be able to write it down that, well, they told me that they have 100 vehicles. When I went, there were only 50. So that we wouldn't be getting here. And then again, under the Government Asset Management Subcommittee of the transition team chaired by Honorable Ayuko, I'm also aware that a list was given to him. And he was also supposed to go verify. Unfortunately, he is not making this claim. If he were to be making this claim, then I would have, been in a position to side it. But he himself is quiet. Now, it is those who are now in government who are making this claim. And let me say that I am not too comfortable with this particular memo that has been signed, because as a teacher, I know that when you write a memo, you have to write your name and then you sign and all that. But this one is a nameless memo. And
I'm even not saying sign. There's a scribble. For me, there's a scribble on the face of the cross-check. There's a scribble on the face of the document.
I want to
it's not a signature for me.
I want to plead with the MPP that I know them to be very competent in doing one thing, governing. They govern better. I want them to focus on governance and do away with this. These things are quite propagandistic. If really 200 vehicles are missing, I think that there is a way to go about it. Haul the former chief of staff and then sort this out with him. I mean, to go public and to be making this claims, I mean, it's quite diversionary. Let them focus on governance and govern well. I mean, the mandate that has been given to them is quite huge. The goodwill of the MPP government is huge, and let them not dissipate this goodwill by focusing on some of these minor issues. If indeed 200 vehicles are missing, then it's a very serious matter.
From what that you've heard, you genuinely believe 200 cars are missing?
Well, I doubt it. I mean, I doubt it. If they may be in the system. Maybe they went there, they didn't find them. But the fact that you didn't find them at the presidency doesn't mean that they are not operating in other government ministries, department, agencies. And so, like I said, the best way to go about it is to call the chief of staff before the seat of government, discuss some of these things. Well, you said there was X amount of number of vehicles in the pool, but when we went there, we haven't found them. Then he would be able to explain. If he's unable to explain, then of course we can deal with the situation from there. But again, I am quite disappointed about the role played by the Administrator General in this whole process. I'm also not too comfortable.
He could have saved us all this trouble.
He could have saved us all this trouble. I'm also not comfortable with the role that Ayuko also played, because he was the chair of the subcommittee and on asset management, and he was given a list. he was supposed to have verified. If he had done that, I'm sure we wouldn't have gotten here. But like I said again, I am very much interested in how governance will be carried out. I'm very much interested in how they will be able to, NPP will be able to deal with corruption and to honor all the promises that they have made. Let them not focus on minor issues. Let them focus on the key major issues that confront us as a country. 200 vehicles missing is a very serious matter that cannot be swept under the carpet, but there is a very competent way of dealing with it to ensure that if indeed they are not there, they are retrieved.
Mr. Janta, so you've heard, now all the facts are on the table. I mean, some of them, I don't know whether they are facts, but there are documents flying around, claims made, different figures in terms of how many cars were left. Administrator General says 678. I was given, signed by the Chief of Staff. I handed over to the Transition Committee. Now, the former Chief of Staff, Deputy, that comes with a different figure, which in itself is interesting. He says 641. He gives a list. Now we have a third document from the current government saying they got it from the previous, saying 428. So, as a citizen, who do you believe?
Evans, it's not a question of who do I believe. It's a question of, do we live by laws in this country? That is the first point of call. Do we live by laws? And the reason why I ask that question, the amended transition bill, has it been assented to? Has it been gazetted? And because it hasn't been assented and hasn't been gazetted, how does the Administrator General use it? In that law, it states that the previous government that is out of power is given 3 months to hand over all government assets. 3 solid months. How old is this new government?
Yeah.
1 month. What are we jumping about for? What are we jumping about for if we are not prepared to go by the law? Now, whose responsibility is it to make sure that all government assets are collated and make sure that everything is correct? Is it not the Administrative General? So, if it so happened that the previous government did nothing about his office, isn't the responsibility on this government? The first thing is to make sure that that office is resourced. And everything that he needs to do this business is in place. Now, let me give a word of caution to our MPP brothers. They should not use this as an excuse to buy new cars. They should not use this, and I repeat, and I know why I'm saying it. They should not use this as an excuse to order and buy new cars.
We've ordered already.
Because you see, it would be the pot calling the kettle black.
If they buy new cars.
Yes. What would have changed? If you claim that the NDC have not done the right thing, you are the pot. Then you go and do the same thing, you are the kettle. They should make sure, because Ghanaians are watching. And for me, I put the president aside. I put him aside. Look, he has been in this realm of wanting to be a president since I was 15 years old. Since I was 15 years old. And I say that because I have evidence. The time when a Champon brought his union government.
You mean 40 years ago?
Yes. Union government. It was in my father's house. Afrifa and all of them were meeting to stop him. So I know. Now, if he has had this long-term vision and he knows where he wants to go to, and the people he has brought on board do not have that vision, they will let him down. Because he does not have eyes to see everything. The Administrator General, what did he say? He granted an interview to Daily Graphic. And he said, I quote, The reporting format for taking stock of government vehicles contained in the handover notes was thoroughly enough to help find the missing vehicles, and a careful analysis was done. He put a template together. And so, if you say there are 200 missing vehicles, go back to that template and use that template to identify. Now,
you do find it curious, just on that same argument, that the NPP is not referring to the transition document, but they're referring to a document they got from a transport officer in the previous administration.
That is why I cited that caution. That is why I cited that caution. Now, if the NPP feel, and I don't want to use the word, the name NPP, because when you use the name NPP,
if the government,
no, yeah, you are bringing in the president,
yeah.
And maybe he really doesn't know exactly what is going on, because from his utterances, from his swearing in, you can see that any time he swears in, there's a note of warning and a note of caution. So he's talking, it is the team manager talking to the players, that when you go on there, what I've told you to do, make sure you don't do anything ultra vires. So I don't want to say MPP, but those who are in charge, chief of staff, all these things, why haven't they? And in any country which we like to class ourselves with, the first thing they will do is report to the police.
If the cars are missing,
Yes.
report to the police.
Yes, report to the police. Because you don't know how the cars are missing. You don't know whether somebody has stolen it. You don't know whether they are broken down.
But they form the committee. That includes BNI.
You start from the police first. Go and make a complaint first. Then when you want to set up. They are the body that handle these types of criminal things, if you want to call it criminal, inverted commas begin and close. You've gone to your house, something is missing. You call your family members to form a committee to go and look for it. You go to the police first. And then after you go to the police, you sit down with your people and say, hey, maybe such a person would have done this, or maybe such a person would have done that. That wasn't done. Now, even talking now, let's even take this document to be kosher. You have a certain number of cars in the presidency. I believe those cars have been divided into the different sectors and departments of the presidency. So, the Administrator General, he noted in his interview that there were cars for state protocol.
And he mentioned the number.
There were cars for the general administration. There were cars for VVIP.
Yeah.
State protocol, he said 67. General administration, he said 41. VVIP, he said 570. Now, from what my brother has quoted us, they have bungled everything together. Give us the different departments and the cars that were in those departments.
You're emphasizing the point that the transition document would have been more detailed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you want to get to the bottom of the matter,
Go to transition document. Why did you set the transition team up? And this is what I don't like about, okay, we've come into power, so we are nosing everything, when there are rules and regulations and ways in which you can identify these things. Why are we doing it in other? Why are we so interested in painting any government that leaves black? Why? Both MPP and NDC and CPP and PNC, it looks as if it's a culture in this country. It has to stop. It has to stop. Because you are responsible to the people who sometimes are not aware of what is going on. We vote a government in to serve us, not the government to serve themselves. And look, Ahin, who is the communications director there, he said what? President Akufo-Addo had to use his own car. When well, he brought it out.
Yes.
He was brave enough to bring it out. And within that small enclave of the president's vehicle, there are 2 bulletproof saloon cars, 2 bulletproof cross-country vehicles. 2. And inauguration. What car did President Akufo-Addo sit in?
A VW, I think. That we understand that was bought at Ghana 50.
Whatever the case is, he sat in a car. Why would he want to use his own car? And if even President Akufo-Addo decided to use his own car, is he not endangering his life as president of this country? Is he not endangering his life? He's not responsible to himself. He's responsible to the people.
Yeah. It begs the question. Now the bulletproof vehicles, I think there's an admission that it's there. So
why would he drive his own car?
Propaganda. I told you.
Why would he drive his own car? Look, if a president, and let me tell you, Nkrumah did it. I know Rawlings did it. I'm not sure whether President Kufuor did it. I'm not sure whether, and what you call it, President Mills did it. I'm not sure whether John Mahama did it. At night, they took tours around the town to see for themselves. I'm not sure whether
President Mahama did it on motorbike.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether.
And a very
President
expensive
Kufuor-
motorbike.
I'm not sure which of the presidents went to the central business district and saw people lying in front of. I don't remember which of the presidents, but they've all done it in private cars. Even the Asantini. If he wants to go and see somebody, he goes at night and he doesn't use his official car. So why would President Akufo-Addo, in the glare, light and day of everybody, want to use his own car? And you see,
So you don't believe it?
and you see, the MPP, when the NDC were in government, were fighting and your propaganda this and your propaganda that, your propaganda this. What is Ahi trying to do? And I'll single out Ahi. Why will I single out Ahi? Because during President Akufo-Addo's inaugural speech, where plagiarism was rife, whose finger did they point at? Who apologized?
But he's a communication.
Wait,
He's a communications director. We don't know if he was involved. I mean, he was just doing the honorable thing.
Evans.
He was just doing the honorable thing.
Evans. He apologized.
True.
Why did he apologize?
Well, I don't know the background to
Exactly.
that story.
And I can only go by the reason why he apologized. He could have kept quiet. Could have not said anything. And nobody have pointed
But he
the finger at
apologized on
anybody.
behalf of the presidency, not on his personal behalf.
Is that his responsibility?
No, but he's a communications director. of the
Yes, so
presidency.
it means the perception was that he was part and part, because the president didn't sit down to write that statement himself.
He would have
gave
had
it
an
to-
input.
He gave it to his communication team to do, and if he's part of the
And
communication
he's the
team,
director of communication.
he's
Yeah,
part
so,
of
so,
the
so,
charge.
so it backs my point.
Yeah,
So
he's
he
in
was
charge.
apologizing on behalf of the president.
We
because
have
it was a team
exercise,
effort.
no, of an exercise in which he was in charge.
No.
I don't think it's fair to single him
Evans.
out.
Oh, he was in charge.
No, but I don't think it's fair to
Evans.
single one individual.
That-
but the president is bigger than one person.
That is my prerogative. That is my prerogative.
But you also have to be fair.
That is the way
in asserting that prerogative.
I think I'm being fair. Because you see, within a communications team, you have a group. It's a team.
Exactly.
It's a team.
Exactly.
And he could have come out and said, I lead the communications team. We have sat down. We have gone into this
I
particular...
think that's what. I think he used the plural. He
No,
didn't
I
use-
didn't.
He didn't use I in that apology letter.
hear. I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
I did not hear it. Maybe my ears were deaf then, but I'm saying I did not hear it. We should stop using propaganda to govern. We should stop using propaganda to govern. We should stop nitpicking. I would have expected this memo to be given straight to the Administrator General. Look, this is the list of cars you gave us.
Reconcile first.
From our investigations, this is what we've got. Please reconcile. Now, the cars that my brother is talking about, he's talking about cars that have been broken down. How do we know that those cars weren't broken down 20 years ago and they are still there? How do we know that? Let's be sincere with our government. I believe a change has come. Everybody is jumping and be happy about that change. I believe we are going through a certain mode now of transparency, accountability, and truth in whatever we do. Let's keep that. And let's stop hitting parties. Look, the NDC, they also did something that the MPP has never done. And what is that? At Nana Akufo-Addo's inauguration, How many NDC people did you see there? Plenty. Plenty. When we were inaugurating President Mahama, how many MPP people did you see there? Very, very few. We've gotten to a stage in our politics where we should come together as a people, because there's a much bigger picture. Look,
But
Mr. Jantua is talking about something different.
let's come. There are aspects of this that we need to. I get it. I want to conclude in a few seconds.
Let me conclude.
Yes.
The point I'm trying to make here is that even if my brother here says this document, stands water, is something that we can go by, please go through the right channel.
Okay. Let me bring him in. David,
just a quick
there are a lot
one.
of questions still unanswered.
Yeah, to start with, I must register my protest right here at how my senior colleague panelist has zoomed in on the person of Eugene Ahin.
Yeah.
I think that is very, very unfortunate and unfair to his person, doing his just work as a young man to serve this party. I think you've been very unfair to
I don't
Eugene
think so.
this morning.
That
is
is
my
my
opinion.
my opinion.
I get it, but it has to be a fair one.
Well, I think it's fair. For
We
me,
are
it's fair.
discussing issues of national interest. I think we are discussing issues of matters, issues of national interest. Zooming in on the person of Eugene Ahin, who does communication and heads the communication bureau at the presidency, is I think is very unfair, and possibly, I'm sure if you have another opportunity, you would want to apologize to
Please,
him.
I'm not.
Like I was saying,
I'll tell you now that I believe in what I said.
Let him conclude.
I started with my opening remark that governance is a serious business, and I find it difficult. We spending so much time on an infinitesimal percentage of governance process, vehicles. However, if a Land Cruiser costs over $100,000 US,
we're talking about millions,
and we can't find over 200 of them,
that is if
like Professor Jampo said,
can't find.
If we can't find 200 of them or more, like Professor Jampo said, there is a serious business that we can't sweep under the carpet. Honorable Judge Lowe tells us about how crude the MPP is handling this process. Maybe he must have forgotten. The MPP flag bearer then in 2009 had his personal V8 Land Cruiser snatched from him in Rambo style. These are things that I am thinking we have been given a better opportunity to govern, so we needn't go back to them. So that is why I am happy the Chief of Staff set up a task force. Evans, I am not speaking just from my head. If you go to the presidency, you are a seasoned media man. Take your cameraman to the presidency. You will find the cars over there. Apart from that, as though we don't know the various departments and agencies at the presidency, we know them. The Ghana Youth Commission and the various.
Have you checked?
And all these departments have these vehicles assigned to them, and you go there, and they are not there. So what we are saying is that, please, let me land.
What does the law say?
Mr. Jantua, let's allow him.
I think you must be more worried that your Chief of Staff gave a figure of 641 and the Administrator General, who had a custodial responsibility over the cars.
There's a discrepancy about 37 cars.
I am thinking you should be more worried.
I'm not worried.
You should be more worried that your Chief of Staff gives a different figure contrary to what the Administrator General gives.
You don't even realize that you are saying 200 cars are missing. And if in that note you have been told that ministers and deputy ministers handed over to chief directors, how many did that come out?
You were not listening. With the greatest of respect, you were not listening.
You were not listening. Clearly, you are on an agenda.
No, let him wrap up.
And you won't succeed today, you won't succeed tomorrow.
Let him wrap up.
His Excellency the President assumes office, and out of his own will, he decides that a 2016 Toyota Land Cruiser I bought and used for my campaign, under the circumstance and the controversy surrounding cars at the pool, I have decided to use my personal vehicle. And Eugene Ahin decides to tell the good people of Ghana that there is a 2007 BMW bought at the Ghana at 50 celebration, a 10-year-old BMW. That is what he used for his internal rounds. And secondly, he drives his own V8 Land Cruiser he bought. I think this.
Don't let him say that because there are no vehicles. That is where we are saying.
It's
Because you said there were no vehicles.
Can we allow him? Can we allow him to make his point? Take a break.
You genuinely lied when he said that there were no vehicles for the president to use.
Mr. Lowe.
Please, no, Evans. Let's be very fair.
Mr. Lowe.
And that is the point you are making.
Mr. Lowe, allow him to make his point.
And he lied to the people of Ghana.
Allow him to make
his point. And that is
his
the
point.
point you are making.
That's
like I was saying.
From that lie flows all the other lies that they brought.
Let's have David make a point. Mr. Lowe, let allow him to wrap because we need to take a short break. We'll be right back on this. Let him make his point now.
I'm struggling to appreciate your discomfort with this particular car issue.
No, I'm not discomforted.
The problem is that
we are dragging this.
I think I'll have to call him to order.
I have.
It's very unfair for you to sit on TV and say you are lying.
Mr. Lowe,
That is not true.
Mr. Lowe,
You have not accounted for 200 vehicles. You sit here and say you are lying.
Mr. Lowe, you know, as they say in court, you're out of order. And in Parliament,
you are the judge.
exactly, you're out of order. Please land. Please land.
Evans, if after the president took over the presidency, he sits and he does an introspection and he realizes there is an urgent need to procure a few more vehicles to add to the presidential fleet to make his job convenient and possible and simpler. I don't think there's a law that bars him from doing so. And under the circumstances,
would that be prudent?
well, let me flow.
Finish.
Let me
take a break. Let me take a break.
Let me establish the principle that.
No, we'll return. We are not done. We are not done. No, when we return,
look, honorable law. The president.
Okay, we're going to take a break now.
Does not intend to buy new cars. It does not cross our mind.
So thank you very much for landing.
The president
thank you for landing. John Lowe, thank you very much also. David, thank you. Let's take a short break. When we return, we'll go into the conversation about the cars that have been seized already. Kofi Adams is fighting this. It's written to the IGP already, demanding the cars be released. In fact, he's threatening to sue the Deputy General Secretary of the MPP, Obri Boaheng. He's asking him to apologize to Retrieval because he had alleged that Mr. Adams stole the vehicles. We'll come back and have a conversation about that very briefly. And then we'll move on to the other big things that happened this week. Still, we are going to talk about... We'll have a take. We'll wrap up. We'll wrap up briefly. Because still on transition matters, we still have that MPP NDC clash on properties. And that's where the Kofi Adams bit comes in. Then also there's a Ajin Boateng. Of course, the former Deputy Information Minister has also been alleged that his vehicle was seized. He's still waiting for them to return. When return, all that will be discussed. My panelists will get their final say on this very topic. And as we move on to the other big issues to discuss. This is Newsfile. My name is Evan Spencer. Stay with us.